everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Dynasty Dudez Hangout, live from my parents' house with, with my friend Russell Clay and the second ever two-time guest, George Kritikos. How's it going tonight, fellas?
Woo!
It's going well, man.
I don't know what I'm wooing, but I mean things are better than average, I'd say.
Save that for later in the show, buddy.
Yeah, rookie drafts are kicking off, and you know how they say, like, if you're in a lot of leagues, you should diversify.
You don't do that.
You know what I say about diversifying? Great concept, but I'm just gonna keep picking my same guys, and then probably be wrong, and then be really sad next year. But hey, like I get the concept, but the discipline to do it is just a whole different type of thing that I don't possess. So that's where I'm at with that.
Well, I remember you guys had the Ghost on a couple weeks ago, and he talked about how he had like 50 leagues and didn't have a single Odell Beckham share.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what's going to happen to you.
That's why I just got to pick all the right guys, and then I'll be fine, right?
That's the key to fantasy, actually, picking the right guys.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty important part.
All right, so we'll get into some football talk. We're going to talk about La'el Collins, Tom Brady, UDFA, pretty much the whole gambit today. We'll start off with La'el Collins. He was the hot topic of draft weekend. He went from a top 20, top 25 pick at the offensive line position to undrafted because he was essentially he was questioned by police in a murder of his ex-girlfriend. So we're going to leave that alone because that's for other people to talk about. Let's talk about La'el.
Wait a second. Hold on. This is like the pristine moment in like NFL conspiracy theorists time. Like this is their time to come out and be like, "Oh my God, this is rigged. Dallas is like." Anyway, but like if you were a conspiracy theorist right now, this would be like the biggest news in the last year.
I was actually kind of hoping for like a Maury Povich thing where like they'd bring him on and then they'd actually do the paternity test and like have him in an envelope.
You are the father.
And like he's just high-fiving people in the crowd and he's just like going crazy. That's what I was hoping for. It actually was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
There will be a 30 for 30 on it in a couple years. So there's that. But so what do we think of Dallas's offensive line / backfield with this signing? Like, are they the most ridiculous offensive line we've seen since like the '90s Cowboys, or what's going on in Dallas right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great, obviously it's great just to hoard talent, and I think Jerry Jones went on record saying, oh yeah, now we have essentially 3 first-round picks that we got between Gregory, Collins, and then Byron Jones. But I mean, they're saying he'll probably slide into guard, and then I think Free is like 31 or 32 in the end of his contract, so he'll probably end up taking over there. The line's filthy. I mean, they seem to always take a priority on that offensive line anyway, so it makes sense. But that backfield's so bad that, I mean, it just makes a below average runner an okay runner. I mean, I'm not excited.
But this is sort of a rare situation where I really don't know if it matters who's running the ball. Like I really think whoever is placed into that spot is going to be a top 10 to 15 back. Like if Joseph Randle is given the starting job, like not in Dynasty, but in redraft this year, if he has that line for an entire season, even if he's bad, it's just going to be so wide open.
Well, I heard something where Jerry Jones was saying that they're willing to trade off their first-round pick next year if there's a running back on the market to get because of the Collins signing. He said, essentially, This is my first-rounder, for next year, so I'd be willing to give that up to get a running back.
Right.
So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, right now they're talking committee, and I mean, 4 parts of a terrible committee is still just a terrible, it's a terrible running back. But, I mean, I don't know. I see Romo throwing a lot more at the end of the day, unless they get somebody. That's what I think. It's just so bad there.
That would make sense. What do you think, Nathan?
I don't. It's kind of one of those things that it's just so ugly that I'm just like, okay, someone else is gonna score those points at running back. I'm not going to be scoring those points.
Okay.
I have one McFadden share and no Randall, no Dunbar or whatever. There have been some like rumblings / like fantasy owners just being hopeful of like Doug Martin to Dallas, which that'd be fun for me because I have a lot of MFL 10 shares there.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm just letting someone else get those points at this point. The other conspiracy theory going on in the NFL right now, Deflategate. The Wells report came out this week, and essentially it called Tom Brady a liar. He said he didn't know things when he knew things, yada, yada, yada. So the NFL reports came out on Friday that said he would be suspended and that the length of a suspension would come out this coming week. So what are our thoughts on Brady and a possible suspension, which could be up to 6 to 8 games?
Yeah, this is not good for dynasty owners with Tom Brady. Like, I have a league that I'm in with Nathan, and Tom Brady's like my only quarterback. This is like, it's not a good. I mean, obviously you can patch together something for cheap, but like this is gonna hurt some people if he's out for a long time. You know?
Yeah, I don't own any Tom Brady shares. Not really by choice. It's just I've never had a chance to own him.
Right.
But honestly, I'm kind of like interested to see if he gets like 1 or 2 games. Then I think that's fine because I'd also like to see what Garoppolo is like because that would be an interesting, chance to see him in the regular season and to see him with those weapons. And if he gets a 2-game tryout and he looks good, I mean, how much does his price go up in Dynasty? Like just from 2 good games.
Very true.
Yeah. So that's something I'd kind of like to see. And as far as Brady, like I heard the 6 to 8 games, that just seems nuts to me with how little they've suspended so many other people.
That would be so insane if they did that. But at this point, I'm waiting it out. Like, if that happens, I mean, that'd just be insane. But it wouldn't entirely surprise me at this point, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, it's impossible to predict Goodell and suspensions and what that happen, and it's, I don't know, it's just a wait and see at this point. I've seen people say, oh, this is your time to sell high-end Garoppolo. I just don't see anybody who's going to be paying for Garoppolo, like, unless they really liked him pre-draft. But guess what? If they really liked him pre-draft, they'd have him today. They wouldn't be waiting for Brady to get suspended.
Yeah, like George said, I think your best chance is to hold right now, and then, like, if he plays wait for those few games, and then if he plays really well there might be a window, But right now,
he could go like Matt Flynn with the Packers,
Yeah,
years
exactly.
ago, and just have like a pair of ridiculous games, and then never do anything again.
Right. And I mean, they're turned into a market for Matt Flynn in like real life and fake life. So.
Well, he got like chances with Seattle and then like chances with Oakland too. Yeah. So maybe that's what he becomes. Garoppolo just becomes that guy who just drifts around for like 8 years and never actually does much.
And it's a pretty great job.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk some. I think we're good with Brady Garoppolo talk for now.
Yeah.
We'll talk some UDFA guys because most of the day 3 guys we're going to cover we're going to be covering a rookie draft that we did with RSO, where it was only 3rd rounders or later. So most of the 3rd to 7th round guys were in there. So we'll just talk some UDFA guys right now. Just pick one if you have one on deck of one you'd like to talk about. Either you guys have one or I can start rambling.
Start rambling, sir.
Okay. My number one on the board of the UDFA action is Devontae Davis. A lot of film guys like him. A lot of metric guys like him. He went to Philly. There's an opportunity there because Riley Cooper sucks. So I don't know. It's hard to get excited about undrafted free agent guys, but if I'm going to be happy about one, it's Devontae Davis and his size, speed, and in the Chip Kelly offense.
Yeah, I like Davis fine. What's funny is like I was making my list of UDFAs and there's 3 Davis receivers, and so I kind of was starting to get them confused. But but I agree with Nathan. I think he's got like that size speed combo. He's pretty good on the jump balls. He kind of had like a little bit of a Jalen Strong vibe to me. Not necessarily the same player, but like a guy who's going to go up after balls and not really get a ton of separation, but needs to deal with like contested situations because he's not the guy who's going to just go all Amari Cooper and just get separation within the first 3 steps. I like him. I wouldn't say he's not my first, but I like him.
Who's your first?
I would say probably my first is Zach Zinner.
Okay.
Because I like the situation and I like him, so it worked out quite nicely.
Really?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dula, or is it just what is it exactly?
I guess I don't know. I mean, I think Detroit's just used multiple backs for a few years, and he's that guy who could probably be a good complement to Abdullah, where he's going to be kind of that power side of that tandem, and can catch the ball pretty well, and can pass block pretty well. I think he's got a good shot. The only thing, honestly, that I noticed was someone today kind of tweeted out that he, wants to go to medical school later on. So he's actually a smart dude. So who knows how long he even decides to try to play. He could be out in 2 years, and then what does that mean?
I mean, it means he's a UDFA for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've pretty much made my stance clear on how I feel about draft position and stuff like that. So I can't say I've really paid that much attention to the undrafted free agents at this point. I mean, Austin Hill, did he get signed anywhere?
He failed the physical in Seattle.
I
think they ended up signing someone else who failed the physical with the Bengals, didn't they?
Yeah, no, that was I have it in here. On a second. Wide receiver, Casey Williams.
Yeah. So
okay, that's interesting. Those are
Hill failed and left, and then they signed someone else who failed with a different team.
I mean, those are 2 interesting guys that sort of showed a lot of promise early on in their careers, and it never really came to fruition. So I guess I would keep an eye on those 2, but it doesn't. If the medicals aren't checking out at this point, that's probably not too good for the future,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the things I found funny as I was looking through the UDFAs was Dallas started just signing a bunch of wide receivers, even though they need a running back bad, and there were a few pretty good ones out there.
Mm-hmm.
But Deontay Greenberry, who I actually like, he was the one who didn't get invited to the combine, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And there's a big deal about that. But then they signed George Farmer too, who was another elite recruit that came out of high school.
Oh, they did?
Yep.
George! I'm so happy he made it to an NFL team.
So he's on Dallas, Greenberry's on Dallas, and Antoine Goodley went to Dallas too. So they grabbed a bunch of
George!
Yeah, no, I remember during the whole undrafted free agency rush, one guy who I mildly was paying attention to was Thomas Rawls, and there was rumors that he was going to Dallas, and I was like, yes, this random guy that I have on one team because it was the end of the startup. And I was like, yes, he's in Dallas. And then he went to Seattle instead. So I was like, God damn it! Of all the teams to go to.
I thought it was gonna be Malcolm Brown going to Dallas because he went to Texas and he's that type of runner that they like. And then he went to St. Louis, the absolute last place that a young undrafted free agent should go to.
Yeah.
George Farmer had 360 total receiving yards in his college career.
It's not good.
That dude just battled through injuries the entire time. If they can get professional medical staffs, I mean, hey, we'll see. That'd be a fun one. I'm in on that. I'm in on George Farmer making a comeback here. But
all right, so we'll delve into our sponsor and the league that we just started with DLF, the DLF Writers League on Reality Sports Online. So essentially, this is the startup year, and the rookie draft is separate from the startup auction. And this is a salary cap contract league. So essentially, to kind of even the balance a little bit, was they took away all of the first and second round NFL draft picks and made it a snake draft, 16-team league. So essentially, and also the higher the pick, the more expensive the player is. So if you have, pick 1.16 and 201, it's not as expensive as having 1.01 and 216 type of thing. So let's just go into we'll talk about our picks as well as everyone else's, and just talk about the players and break them down from that standpoint. With the first pick in the league, George Kritikos, you may have heard of him. But he led off with Jalen Strong, so I'll let him lead us off here.
Yeah, so I think I got a little crap for that from Carl Safchik after I made that pick because he thought I should have went Tevin Coleman, which Russell ended up doing with the next pick, but I won't spoil too much there. Yeah, I kind of was debating it, and then I saw the contracts. And I don't know how much you guys paid attention to what the prices were, but for like the first overall pick in this draft, you're paying $5 million plus a year, which is on like $143 million, overall cap for 25 players. Mm-hmm. So it's not cheap. I mean, that's a decent spend.
Yeah.
So my thought was if I'm giving 3 or 4 years, I kind of preferred the receiver, and I had Strong and Coleman really close, and my tiebreaker was I just see Strong with a better chance of maintaining value through 4 years than I do for Coleman. And, I like Strong fine. I think, going to Houston, he'll be okay. I don't think he's going to replace Andre Johnson because he's not the same player, but, there's enough targets there that he'll get his share, and there's, no competition. Cecil Shorts does not scare me. It does not scare me.
Strong was a weird one on draft day because it was almost like panic mode ensued, and he was dropping, and then he goes to not a perfect spot, but I think based on what I see as his ceiling, I think he can reach that in Houston. A high end number 2 receiver. So I really think Strong and Coleman were the two. I think there was a pretty decent drop off after those two, but I'm pretty sure that. Those are my top 2.
Yeah.
Considering the rest of the field.
All right. So after Strong, Russell. So we the right podcast to have right now. Russell had the number 2 pick, and he selected Tevin Coleman, and he's espoused about him plenty of times on this podcast, if espoused is actually a word. But I'll let him do it for a minute or two right now too.
Yeah, basically, I think I was higher on Coleman pretty much throughout the process than most people. He was my 3rd-ranked running back before the draft, and he is there now. His production at Indiana was unbelievable, and I think he went to a perfect situation. I know there's been a lot of talk about the offensive line and stuff, and I wouldn't pretend to know what the perfect fit is scheme-wise, but I just see that as a passing offense that's going to have a lot of open lanes and not much concentration on him. So even if maybe he's not quite the player I think he is, I think that situation could benefit him a lot. So I like the player. I like the situation. I just love that situation. I was attempting to get him in 100% of my leagues, but in the kitchen sink original rookie draft, I just got blasted out of the water by 3 people had 60% of the rookie money, so that just wasn't happening. But yeah.
All right, so at 103, it's interesting. One of the bigger surprises in the NFL draft for me was Matt Jones going in the 3rd round to Washington, and here he goes 103 in the RSO league. I don't know. I haven't really seen it with Matt Jones. I definitely don't. There were definitely some guys that were selected afterward that I would prefer. But what is the method to the madness here? If anyone has a take on Matt Jones going this early in the NFL and Dynasty rookie drafts, or this one in particular.
I mean, I guess my thought, I don't know, and this is maybe me just totally speculating, but Jones is very similar to Alfred Morris, which makes me think that they're not looking for a Halou complement, they're looking for a replacement. And I like Jones fine. I was a little surprised he went this high too. There were some other guys that I preferred, but if you believe that he's going to get the job from Morris and they're kind of moving away from these pre current regime type of guys, then Jones makes sense. But yeah, that wouldn't have been my pick, but I kind of understand it.
Nathan, the first thing you said was, I don't know, and that pretty much defines how I feel about it. I honestly, throughout the draft process, I didn't really look into Jones that seriously. I didn't expect him to go that high, and I especially didn't expect, like George said, a team to draft potentially to be a replacement or a starting running back. So I still have some homework to do on Jones. But I am intrigued at this point. I think he went a little high, but I'm definitely interested now.
All right, and at 104, some bum named Nathan Powell took Johnson out of Miami, and so this is what confuses me about Duke is that like in the pre-draft rookie bust mock or whatever that I think it was Dan Mailer hosts, I picked Duke Johnson in that mock. And I already have Duke Johnson in 2 leagues already.
Sometimes the value just works out that way, Like.
Yeah, and I don't even really like the landing spot because I'm a Crowell guy, But the fact that they took him in the third round means that they don't really trust Crowell or West quite yet. And if he ends up emerging with the lead role there, then he's a solid value here and a solid value where he's been going in normal rookie drafts, late first, early second, or in that whereabouts or whatever. But yeah, with Duke, I just see him as like a dynamic runner. He has his fumble issues, he has his concussion issues, but if he can stay healthy and if he can hold on to the ball, he has like a C.J. Spiller type potential. I could be wrong here. I'm just throwing out a name, but that's kind of what I see from Duke.
Dude, you're so wrong. Like, oh my God. No, I definitely, sort of like how I felt with Mariota and DGB going to the Titans. Like, just him going to the Browns makes me uncomfortable. But I do like the fit, and I think, I don't know that Crowell's spot is as ingrained as some think. Like, I think he played well last year. But they picked Duke reasonably high, and I think he's going to get a shot to potentially have the lead role in a committee at least.
Yeah,
what do you think,
I kind of see it like because Crowell cannot catch. There's no nice way to say that. He cannot catch the ball at all. So I see Duke Johnson kind of coming in like Gio Bernard, with the Bengals, and they kind of use that type of setup with Crowell and Duke. And I think West is the odd guy out in this situation. I think he's going to be the one that's just not going to end up, doing much of anything. So that's kind of what I think. I don't know. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if he has decent PPR value even in year one because whoever the hell that Cleveland quarterback is, they don't have much to throw to. So what the hell? Why not throw it to him? He's probably has the best chance to actually break something for a touchdown out of anyone who could catch the ball.
Yeah, right. No. The fact that they're kind of giving up on West already just shows how absolutely awful that draft was last year with Manziel. They traded up for Manziel. They traded up for
Gilbert.
Terrence West. They traded up for everybody terrible. No, they traded down for Gilbert, but still. Anyways, we'll move on to 105. With 105, David Johnson went off the board to Arizona. The Arizona Cardinals. And I don't know, I'm not an Andre Ellington guy, so I think it's an okay landing spot for Johnson. It's kind of a wait and see for me. I wasn't really blown away by his talent from what I saw in numbers or whatever. But what are you guys' thoughts on David Johnson?
I guess I'll go first this time. So I am an Ellington apologist, but not really because I don't apologize for it. I actually like him. I think it's like me and Eric Harder are like the only two DLF guys left who have any interest in Andre Ellington at all. But I just think it's kind of like the Matt Jones thing though. It's like Matt Jones where David Johnson's almost the exact same guy as Andre Ellington. He he has great hands, he catches the ball really well, runs good routes, but cannot run inside to save his life. Even though Johnson's like 220, 230, he's a big guy, but he can't run inside at all. So I don't really understand Arizona's pick of him unless, again, are they trying to replace Ellington, which it seems like just based off of the bluster post-draft, they're saying no, Ellington's going to be the lead guy again.
It's weird. It's weird because last week with Matt we were talking about redundant pieces and sort of like how teams find their wide receivers, like the Seahawks and the Steelers did with Coates and Lockett.
And Funchess.
Yeah, and Funchess, and you see that with the running backs a little bit here with the ones we're talking about. So some strange strategy going on.
All right, so then the next guy off the board at 106 was Jay Ajayi, or however you want to say it. And he was a guy that I was absolutely in love with until this medical stuff kind of came out. And then even when the medical stuff came out, I'm like, all right, let's wait and see. The NFL draft will tell us how much this medical stuff means. And then when a second, third round talent drops to the fifth round, they're saying, yeah, this medical stuff means a lot. His knee might be really screwed up. So I've been shying away in rookie auctions, rookie drafts. But what do we think about Jay Ajayi taking a risk here in the middle of the first of our format?
His fantasy sort of rookie value hasn't dropped nearly as much as it should have, in my opinion. I'm still seeing him going relatively high. I think he's a good player, and I don't hate that you do that. If you want to go get your guy, go get him. But he's definitely going higher than I'm comfortable with at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think to Nathan's earlier point, I'm going to trust the NFL evaluations of a medical thing because I'm not someone who knows any of those things. So if they're telling me that he should fall to the fifth round and, because of that concern, that makes me pretty scared. In this setting at 106, it's not a huge risk.
Yeah. I was going to say, to be clear, in this one, it works because this would be like late second, early third, which is fine with me.
Right.
But I'm seeing him go a little higher. So
yeah, I've seen like early, mid second for the most part with him, and that's not. I'm not comfortable there. The one thing I will say is though, it was a pretty decent landing situation. I mean, he seems like he could either take that lead role from Lamar Miller, or at the very least, he's going to get some kind of role out of it. I just don't see them, and they showed it last year. They don't trust him to carry it 20 times a game. So I feel like at the very least, he's a committee guy for a few years. But he could easily take that job because he's the better pass catcher. I think he's the more physical back. I think the only difference is I'd say Lamar Miller's a more explosive runner as far as, breaking big plays.
Yeah. I definitely think Miller is the type of player that needs someone else, though, to sort of share the load with. So I like it. I think he could be good. I don't have a problem with his game, but fifth round scares me.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to 107. David Cobb went off the board from Minnesota. He got drafted by Tennessee, right? Yeah, Tennessee. And so what does this mean for Bishop Sankey? Is it like – I don't know, it's weird because for me, Sankey, I wasn't a fan last year. And then when his value plummeted in Dynasty, I'm like, okay, I'm a buyer now. He's very cheap, and I thought he'd get starter carries this year. So I don't know. That's what I just saw with Sankey. But then when they bring in David Cobb, I'm a little more worried about it. How do we see that backfield shaking out in Tennessee?
I think it probably ends up kind of like what we talked about with Miami, except David Cobb can't really catch the ball, but maybe it's more like Duke Johnson and Isaiah Crowell, where Cobb plays the Crowell role and Duke Johnson, role is played by Sankey. Because Sankey can catch the ball pretty well, and I actually did like him coming in last year. I just think that offense was so bad, and the coaching staff obviously had no interest in Sankey whatsoever because of his happy feet or whatever they called it. But I don't know. I think, at 107, it makes sense. I think Cobb will probably take everything that Sean Green had last year and will be a better second option or 1B or whatever they call it relative to what they had there.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on getting Sankey for dirt cheap right now. Cobb could be a threat to some carries, but I haven't given up. I haven't given up on Monty Ball yet. I haven't given up on all these guys that haven't shown anything. But one of them has to be good, right? Like somehow, one of them has to turn it around. That's what I'm banking on. Sort of the Mark Ingram sort of deal where it just took a while. But yeah, I don't know. It's still the Titans. Their offense is definitely more talented. I'm just like, I don't know. I guess what Nathan said with letting someone else get the fantasy points. That's how I'm playing that one.
Yeah. I don't know. With Cobb, I kind of saw him as like a Zach Stacy type evaluation from his pre-draft or whatever, where it was like, okay, he might come in and get an opportunity, but someone else is going to take those carries eventually, and he doesn't even have those carries right now because Sankey might have them too. So that's the best way to put it, is let someone else have the Titans backfield unless you're just getting Sankey really cheap right now. That's my opinion.
Oh, and also quickly, since the entire Hangout has been about an RSO league, we're not going to have Nathan read the message, but basically, if you want 10% off your league fees, Dudes 10, DUDEZ 10, 10% off your league fees.
Do you have to put the Z in the lightning bolt Z, or can you use a regular Z?
I haven't talked to Matt about if he's put the lightning bolt Z in yet, but that might be a feature. So
I think that's in like your emojis on your iPhone.
So yeah, all right, we can continue with.
All right. To 108 was Chris Conley of the Kansas City Chiefs. Conley is a guy I've kind of taken a liking to. He seems to have what that Chiefs offense didn't have, and he's fitting the puzzle piece. Like, for once, it's not a redundant talent. I don't think he does the things that else he does. So yeah, I really like the landing spot. I like the talent. I think it's a solid value here.
Yeah, I like Conley a lot, and I liked him before the draft. I hate this landing spot. This is like the opposite. This is completely different. So there's like a redundant player, but then he's like a superfluous player, just somebody who's just never going to be used the way that you wish he would, because he's so fast. He had, a 45-inch vertical, so obviously he can get up. He's a good deep threat. But he's going to the quarterback who cannot throw it past about, 7-8 yards. So it's a little disappointing, and it, totally lowers his ceiling for me. He should win that number 2 job without even trying, but, man, it's just, I liked him, and it's really hard for me to like him as much in this landing spot. It's about as bad as it could have went for him in terms of just where he ended up.
I'm snagging superfluous from you. I just looked it up. Snagging that. I'm using that this week somewhere, and everyone's going to be like, oh, damn. I was a late bloomer to Conley. Everything pretty much checks out in terms of athleticism and stuff. And he seems like a guy that would be really appealing dynasty value-wise. Like, if he were to have a few nice games, I could see his ADP skyrocketing. So that's an interesting guy to take a flyer on, even if you don't necessarily like him yourself.
Well, everyone should like him because he makes his own Star Wars fan fiction. So that's really cool.
True?
Yeah, go on YouTube and check it out. It's actually kind of amazing.
Wow.
So he's like a huge nerd, which is probably great because he's like the anti-Josh Gordon.
That's like AJ Green he was a big juggler. It was just like, oh, all right, AJ Green, sweet.
Those are the guys that I'm like, I'm totally cool drafting.
Yeah,
because they're never getting suspended.
Friday night he's going to be playing Tetris on his phone.
I mean, May 4th is probably his favorite day of the year, just so he can watch all the Star Wars movies. Yeah, that's my dorky joke of the day.
All right, so let's start picking out some guys you like from this draft. Like, just not even necessarily guys you pick, but who are some guys that you like going down the list here?
I
George.
like a guy who I was actually
Yeah.
contemplating it before when I picked Duke was Tyler Lockett. You know, the speedy guy who went to Seattle. I'm a fan of his, and I think that he was quite a good value at 1.13. I see him as like a very solid, you know, late second, early third rounder that you
Hmm.
can go to those drafts.
Agree.
And he's just a better version of Doug Baldwin. I think is kind of what I thought. Like he's not a big guy, but he has great hands and catches the ball well. But I don't know. I don't know what he does in Seattle, but I think he should be able to win that job.
And I'll pour out. I'm not actually gonna pour it out, but we're gonna pour out some dirty coffee, iced coffee water for Paul Richardson. I don't think this is a good sign for him that they drafted Tyler Lockett here. So I don't know. Still waiting it out. Get that rehab going, Paul. Come on, baby.
So
All
since
right.
Nathan is now George, I'll be Nathan for a second, and I'll pick somebody out.
Yes.
I liked Kenny Bell a lot going to Tampa Bay. I think that was one. I liked him a lot going into the draft. I think Matt Waldman was someone who was on him pretty quickly. And if you go over to like Matt Kelly's player profile, so yeah, he's an interesting dude. I mean, not big. He's like 6'1", but he has a good vertical. He's long. You know, he played for Nebraska, so it's like it kind of hid how good of a receiver he was. But I think he's Vincent Jackson's replacement there. He's got 1 year left. I'm going to be the guy that takes over, and think about that offense with him and Evans and ASJ and Winston throwing the ball. I like Bell, and sadly in Kitchen Sink 3, I got outbid by someone who must have been a big Buccaneers fan because I went pretty high on Bell, and I could not get him. Like really high on Bell.
Was it me? Did I get him or no?
I didn't recognize who the guy was, but I was really getting upset because he was going for both Conley and Bell, and I wanted one of the two, and he just kept raising me on both, and I couldn't get either one, so I bailed.
I'll tell you what. Rookie auctions are cutthroat. Like these are some of the most intense things I've been a part of in fantasy football. Like people want their dudes.
Yep.
For me, I like the Georgia Tech guys. I think it's really interesting to me that or DeAndre Smelter and Darren Waller. I think it's really interesting that they both got drafted, even though there's really not much to go on. And Smelter went in the 4th round with 1 year of production, basically, and not even a lot of it, and a major injury. So that's definitely intriguing to me. I think the 49ers don't necessarily have the best track record with skill position players of late, but I do like him. I think he's definitely worth a late second, early third type pick, and I think he could bring solid returns. Waller's sort of a flyer, but he's huge, and there's a lot of young weapons in Baltimore, so maybe he can emerge.
Yeah, I just noticed this looking at the draft board that Kyle got both of them. He doubled up on the Georgia Tech guys.
Oh, that's funny. Hey, there you go, Kyle. I like that.
All right. Let's see. I guess I'm next on the board to talk. Two of the guys that I do like, and people on Team Big Wide Receiver are not going to be fans of me right now, but I like both Hardy and Rashad Green. I think that if you're tired of taking home run swings in the 3rd round and tired of missing on those, then you can take a guy who is going to have like a wide receiver 3 career. I'm pretty sure of it. You know, both Rashad Green and Hardy, I feel like they're both going to be dependable guys for their quarterback. You know, just making the catches in the slot when they need to be made on 1st down, on 3rd down or whatever. It's not the sexiest pick. They're not going to be 10 TD guys or whatever, but sometimes trying to make that swing every time is just going to cost your team more often than not.
And like George mentioned with Kenny Bell, I think like situations look a little muddled right now, but I think they could eventually emerge as sort of better options than we even can think about right now, you know? Like there's going to be more opportunity than we think right now. So Kenny Bell a little more than them, but yeah, no, I like both those guys as well.
Yeah, I liked Hardy. I thought that was a great pick because he has some of those Roddy White qualities, so it totally made sense to me. He's that dependable hands
Yeah,
guy. Nothing like nothing overwhelming in terms
right.
of like his measurables or whatever, but he's just a dude who plays hard, so I appreciate that. Rashad
Right.
Green was interesting because of where he went, and it just makes you wonder what that says for the rest of the Jacksonville receivers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anything care to comment?
Well, yeah, I don't want to think about it.
All right. And then let's just talk about the guys we picked in the second round. At 2.13, and by the time in a 16-team league in the second round where you can't pick first and second round, it gets pretty ugly.
Yeah, real ugly. Yeah.
Essentially what I did was I looked at the picks and I said, okay, who got picked high? And Ty Montgomery, where he even went to school right now. But
he was a Stanford guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he probably plays Tetris on the weekends as well.
Yeah. So Montgomery, and I remember this is one of your guys, George. The RB wide receiver hybrid thing going on. And
Yes.
essentially, high pick in the NFL draft, very good offense, or no, higher pick-ish, I guess. So that's how I took away from it. What do you guys think of Montgomery in Green Bay?
Man, the second they drafted him, the first thing I thought was, I really wish they would have just let Randall Cobb walk. Because Montgomery's that same type guy in terms of just knows how to do so much after the catch with the ball.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of trumpeted like, hey, he should be a running back because he's got that build, he probably profiles better, and his hands are not great.
Yeah.
The problem is, not problem, but since the draft, he's dropped like 15 pounds. He went from like 225, now they say he's down to about 210. So he's definitely going to be a receiver. I just wonder if they use him kind of how they were using Cobb when he first was drafted. A few designed runs, some short kind of screen passes to get the ball in his hands, and let him kind of do some work. I like him a lot. I think he's a good player. I just, again, it's situation, and I just don't know what that looks like with him.
I do think it's good he went to the Packers. I think if there was someone who was going to get the most out of his skill set, it would probably be them, like figuring out and like training him. But, God, he's just such a good athlete. I just don't know if he's a receiver.
Yeah.
Like, if you can keep him close to the line of scrimmage and get him the ball, I think he can be awesome. But I see him being in a lot of kick return and punt return situations for now.
Well, yeah, I think that's why they took him in the third round.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really make much sense because the Packers are a smart organization, and burning a third-round pick on a punt returner, I didn't like the Bucs using a sixth-rounder on a punt returner. So,
hey, man, the Bears used a second rounder on a punt returner named Devin Hester, and it worked out all right.
Yeah, the one in our generation that worked out.
Well, you're not allowed to talk bad about Ted Thompson, apparently, because the Green Bay Packers fans get very upset about that in the Midwest.
I'd imagine they would get very upset if you mention anything.
Yep.
One more guy I do like, well, sort of, is Josh Robinson. Him falling to the sixth is pretty much not great at all, but there's that chance that he just gets some carries in an Andrew Luck offense. And that's pretty much, you just need to be a warm body to be fantasy relevant in that offense. So, well, that's not true. That's not true. But,
I don't know if I count Trent Richardson as a warm body. Warm body implies that he actually got on the field and warmed up. But,
yeah.
Eating donuts doesn't really warm you up very much.
Basically, you can be a below-average player and still be awesome in that Colts offense. So,
well, I think he works with Frank Gore pretty well, where he could actually take some short yardage and not eat into all the catches and everything.
Right.
I don't mind it. I think it's a good spot, and I think he'll probably do pretty well there.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw Rich say something about maybe he could fit into the Bradshaw role, which I mean that'd be perfect from a fantasy value perspective if he can just get those red zone receiving touchdowns and just get those third down work. So that'd be good from a fantasy perspective. But I don't know. As with most late round / UDFAs, there's not much. You know, he'll be an RB3 at best. You know, it's just what it is. But I'm interested in hearing your thoughts as we. I'm not even sure what time we started, but we wrap up.
Yeah, pretty close.
Russell, you picked Jamison Crowder with the second to last pick of the draft. What were you thinking there? The guy who weighs less than a piece of paper.
I mean, he still went relatively high. I think he went 4th round, correct?
Yeah.
And at that point, you're pretty much your options are limited. But I do like how he came from a program that doesn't normally produce anything, and he was still very productive and sort of. I just like his college production, sort of how he uplifted that offense from an offense that is usually pretty horrific. So I like that he emerged out of a team that is bad usually. So that was sort of my logic on that one.
Yeah, he'll end up playing the slot there. I don't know if he'll ever get to play outside, but I think that's okay. And I think, that organization does a pretty good job of rotating in different wide receivers, especially small wide receivers like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he, carves out a role at the very least.
Yeah.
So I had the last pick. So that was awesome. And I was scouring through, and I'm just like, oh, did this person get taken? Nope, gone. And I'm sure, Russ, you were doing the same thing.
I was doing the same exact.
And I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, ugh, everything looks so bad. And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to take my home run shot, and I went Brett Hundley. And I know that he's not gonna play for a while, is my guess. But I was thinking about, all the Packers quarterbacks that they seem to draft. I mean, if they're not playing there, they end up starting somewhere, whether it's the aforementioned Matt Flynn, or it's Brunel, or it's Kurt Warner, or it's Aaron Brooks, or it's Craig Nall,
or it's Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't know what Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at that point, you're paying $1 million a year was the salary for the last pick, so
Right.
it's really low. So I mean, if you're gonna stash someone when it's 16 teams and 25 players, that's worth a shot just to see if a year or two down the line he gets traded or something. Plus, he needed to sit behind somebody, and Aaron Rodgers is about the best person he could sit behind.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because if we looked at this before the draft happened, we would look at Brett Hundley as one of the better values,
Yeah.
And like someone as that I sort of expected to be taken in the 2nd or 3rd round as like a developmental guy. But for whatever reason he dropped. I still think he's an intriguing sort of player.
Yeah. I thought like the Rams or the Jets or one of those would have taken him, but no.
There was Bryce Petty madness, bro.
Yeah.
I brought up Scott Tolzien, and I just want to say that I miss him, which is sad that I miss him as a Wisconsin fan. But
yeah, I was gonna say like I mean I miss him as like one human being misses another, but not like as like a human being misses a football player, because I haven't seen enough of that to appreciate his talent or
Based on where we're at now, I'd pay nothing to get him back, but I would take him back for free. You were offering. Do we want to hit on Bill Simmons real quick?
Bill Simmons. So I'll just get you why I'm talking about this. So I've known for a while that Russell was a big fan of his and his whole concept or whatever, and I've never quite understood it. I've always been a little confused by it. And then this was the week that he essentially got canned from ESPN. So now everyone's wondering, where's Bill Simmons going to go? Is he going to go to Bleacher Report, who he's trashed before? Is he going to become his own website? What is Bill Simmons going to do? So explain to me and George the fascination of Bill Simmons and where you think his next job is.
I don't know that we've ever seen a media member this prominent, like, just be a free agent. I have a feeling like pretty much everyone's going to be lining up to – because Okay, what I like about him is that he just basically, he's not trying to, he comes at it from a fan perspective, basically. And he talks about things like he goes to games and he gives his perspective on like the real life stuff, not just nuts and bolts. Like he gives like what they were talking about in the huddle, like sort of body language, and he just gets into all the more sort of subjective parts of the game that I think most people are too afraid to touch on, because it's really subjective. So that's sort of what turned me on to his type of style. And I obviously not everyone's gonna like that, but that's what I like. I think it's a fascinating story.
The thing I'll say is that I'm not a big Bill Simmons reader or fan of his commentary or anything, but the thing I'll say is like, I mean, if he was really like one of those first guys who came out of like the Twitter sphere, blogosphere type of world and really made it big.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of guys who probably wouldn't be writing or doing these things if it wasn't for people like him. So in that sense, I do respect him and I appreciate the work he does. Like I said, I'm not his biggest fan or anything, but I think there are going to be a lot of people lining up to get him, and I don't know what his contract was like. I mean, there may be restrictions on what he can do or where he can go for a certain amount of time, but yeah, I said before the show that I like that he's a big wrestling fan, so that's kind of awesome, and I appreciate that he's just like he does a lot of good. I think of like
He's just like
another one where like all the '90s references and just all the pop culture references.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like a dude that you can have a beer with.
Exactly. He just takes it from a normal guy, like just talking in a bar type of mentality.
Yeah.
Except he's like a good writer somehow.
I think of him as like he's that friend that you have that you don't really like that much, but he's like that one friend you have that you don't like that much. You kind of keep him around. That's what I think of him as. Like, oh yeah. He's kind of a I don't know. I'm trying to think of a word I could actually say on here that like you won't get upset about, but but one of those words. Let's go with DB. That you're friends with, and you're just like, oh, you're so annoying, but you know what? You're our friend, so we can tolerate you. That's kind of how I feel about Bill Simmons.
Well, they have a group of like Jimmy Kimmel, Adam Carolla, Bill Simmons, and like I don't know if you guys watch Jimmy Kimmel, but Cousin Sal. Like, and those guys just all hang out, and I just can't even imagine what that's like.
Yeah, that sounds like the worst group to ever hang out with. I wouldn't want to hang out with them at all.
Dude, that'd be terrifying. They'd just be, oh.
The nice part would be that, you have 4 guys that you'd be more attractive than, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, goodness.
You can be the good-looking guy in that group pretty easily.
That's true.
All right. One last thing, and then it might not actually be a thing at all. But you mentioned you're a wrestling guy, and I saw you tweeting about the boxing. Any Mayweather?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a big boxing fan in UFC, and it's probably a little bit bad. Like where I've gone to like 7 different states and seen UFC events. So it's a little bit of a problem. Less so now that I'm married and have other financial obligations. But I don't know. I like the fight. I mean, I like the technical style of boxing, so I appreciate how good Mayweather is, as much as I hate him as a human being. I mean, the guy is just such a wizard in the ring. It's insane. He's kind of like, I think of him as like my anti-Gronkowski, where where Gronkowski's like the coolest dude ever outside of like the sport, but then I also love him there, like inside, playing. Mayweather's the guy that I just hate so much outside of the ring, but man, he's so good. And I mean, he'll go down as like probably one of the like 20 best boxers, something like that. And Pacquiao will probably be somewhere in that range too. But no, I thought it was a good fight. I know a lot of casual fans hated it, but
right.
For those who do not watch much boxing, you got to watch more of the like, knockout type fighters. So I think like Canelo Alvarez and James Kirkland are fighting tonight, and that's more of like that kind of fight that casual fans get interested in.
There's some great fights on YouTube. of like back in the day when like boxing was huge. There's some crazy, like I think that's like people want Mike Tyson, you know, and that's just not what you're gonna get from Mayweather ever.
You're not getting it from Mayweather. There's like a few guys who are like that, but yeah, Mayweather's not that guy. He's the guy that if you're a boxing purist, you're gonna appreciate, but if you're not, you're not gonna enjoy him.
Right.
All
So
right.
that's all I got.
So, like to thank you for coming on tonight, George. Just let our loyal listeners know where they can find you on the Twitter and whatnot.
Yeah, so I write with Nathan and Russell at Dynasty League Football. Share my top 100 rankings on there as well, and then I'm on Twitter at RotoHack, ROTOHACK.
Very nice.
Sweet.
And of course, you find me on Twitter at NPowellFF and Russell Clay at FF Russell Clay. We're both DLF writers. Essentially, this podcast is becoming the second DLF podcast half the time.
We're basically the farm system for the real DLF podcast. But
We're like the island of misfit toys that Carl and Eric and them don't want to play with.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in today, and always subscribe to Asylum Sports. We're on the podcast version now. On you can get the podcast app on the App Store, and essentially we come out around 8 o'clock or whatever on Saturday nights. And that's on Asylum, so I guess it comes on iTunes later. So I'm rambling. But yeah, thanks for tuning in tonight, guys.
All right, we'll see you later, guys.